What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. And we're finally here. I have seen Endgame, and here is my review. Now, do not watch this video unless you've seen the movie, because I'm going to be talking about some things that might be considered spoilers. So I'm just going to put it out there. So yeah, just don't watch the video unless you've seen the movie already. But I mean, what can I say about this movie? 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, A plus. It was so good. I loved every minute of it, and I want to see it multiple times. I've really never felt that way about a movie in general. Now, the movie is 3 hours long, but it does not feel like you're there for 3 hours. It really doesn't. It is so good, so good. Now, when the movie starts, it starts um, after the events of Infinity War, so after the snap, um, and you know, Tony is lost in space with Nebula, and Captain Marvel rescues them and brings them to Earth. So she's there then with the Avengers and stuff, and then they all decide to go get Thanos on his planet, which is kind of funny because he's just trying to peacefully make a meal, and they just bust into his home and start attacking him, and then Thor kills him, cuts off his head. He went for the head this time, and I just find it funny that they actually reference that. So yeah. But then after that little bit, the movie picks up 5 years later, so there's a time jump. And by this point, everyone's kind of just off on their own. Tony and Pepper have a daughter, so that's where that "I love you 3000" thing comes from. So if you've seen that anywhere, that's what that is. But Thor, I can't talk. Thor is like fat and depressed, which I feel probably hits home for a lot of people, because he is depressed. He suffers from panic attacks, all that stuff. But he comes back. He comes back. What was I gonna say? Oh yes. So then they all decide to go back in time to different time points and get the stones because they're making their own gauntlet. Which is kind of funny. Thanos, the Infinity Gauntlet, yeah, goes goes on the left hand. There's one on the right hand, which was just different. Yeah, okay. I lost my train of thought again. But they make lots of really cool references, and there's Easter eggs and just everything. There's one bit where Cap gets the Tesseract. He has it in the briefcase, and he's on an elevator with a bunch of SHIELD agents, but they weren't SHIELD, they were Hydra, and that's a whole thing from Winter Soldier. But they make a really cool reference to a fairly recent comic storyline. I think it's only like a few years old. But Cap whispers in one of the agent's ears, "Hail Hydra," which is a reference to Secret Empire, where Cap was a Hydra, like a Hydra agent. So I think that's really cool. There's this really cool fight between 2012 Captain America and 2023 Captain America. I think that's right. Uh, because like 2023 is like 5 years from 2018. So I think that's 2022, 23, somewhere in that time frame. So that was really cool. And they also, Bruce as the Hulk, they're one now, and that was really cool. He goes to visit the Ancient One to get the Time Stone, and he says he's looking for Stephen Strange, and she says something like, "You're about 5 years too early," which I just thought was really cool that she knew what was happening. So yeah, but oh, excuse me. So yeah, and then Thor and Rocket go back to 2013, like to Thor: The Dark World, to get the Reality Stone, but back then it was known as the Ether. So Thor actually gets his hammer back from that time period, which is really cool. And at the end of the movie, it's just really awesome. So then they all come back. Well, Black Widow dies. If you've gotten this far watching this video, and this is your first spoiler, and you're mad, I already warned you at the very beginning of the video that there would be spoilers. So, yeah, Black Widow does die. It's kind of sad. I actually thought my soul would have been crushed more in this movie than what it was. But still, that was kind of sad. Hawkeye Ronin was really cool. And yeah, not so much a spoiler, but the reason he becomes Ronin is because his family got dusted. So that's not really a spoiler, because that's like the only logical answer. So, but yeah, they get all the stones. Then, of course, they make the gauntlet. And Hulk's actually the one to put it on, and he snaps then. And then it's really cool because everyone comes back. More on that later. But we know this because, as I just mentioned, Hawkeye's family got dusted. But then after the snap, the Hulk snap, Hawkeye's phone rings and it's his wife. So that was just really cool. And then you see Ant-Man standing at a window, and then Thanos' ship just comes. It just, I know that requires a lot of backstory. Not so much. But to make a long story short, 2023 Nebula and 2014 Nebula are like in the same timeline, so it kind of messes with each other. And 2014 Nebula is getting the memories of 2023 Nebula. And so therefore those memories are revealing the future plans, or the current plans, if you will, to Thanos, who then knows what's happening. So he then has 2014 Nebula take and 2023 Nebula switch places. Not I mean, he doesn't ask 2023 Nebula, hey, why don't you come do this? No, it's not like that, of course. But 2014 Nebula, in disguise as 2023 Nebula, is the cause of the whole end of the movie. And it's the best ending of the movie. A movie ever. So yeah, then, like I said, Thanos' ship comes in and just starts firing on the Avengers facility because it time traveled. It traveled through time from 2014 to 2023. Which then results in the best part of the movie. There is a reference to Secret Wars where Hulk and I think Rocket and War Machine maybe are trapped under rubble, and Hulk's lifting it up, which was actually the cover of a comic, which was really cool. But then it's just a bunch of kind of minuscule stuff. But then we get to the part I want to focus the most on, and that is the ending of the movie. Okay, so there's this rather huge fight between Thor, Cap, and Iron Man, and they're all going against Thanos. And sorry about that. And in that sequence, we get something we've all wanted since they teased it in Age of Ultron. Cap is worthy. He lifted the hammer. He has Mjolnir, and it is so cool. It is awesome. It's just awesome. And then Thanos is facing Cap alone because he's already knocked down Tony and Thor, and he's just putting the beat down on him, and Thanos' sword just shattered through Cap's shield. I mean, he had half of a shield by the end. And then you hear this great how do I want to describe it? You kind of just get a fizzle, which is Falcon, who then repeats himself, and it's much clearer. And then he says the best line that you didn't think would make you emotional or just get you ready. But it does. It so does. It's a line as simple as on your left. And then the best thing ever happens, and I'm looking at my phone because I need you all to experience this music. I'm not going to play it for copyright reasons, so I'm just going to show it to you. But I'm usually not one totally for movie soundtracks that is just music, not actual songs with words. It's just music. I'm not really for that most times, but this is a cool one. This one is so awesome, and it just gets you pumped for the whole final fight. The whole final fight is so epic. It is the most epic final fight in cinema history. It is better than Return of the King. And that final fight, Return of the King, was awesome. And this is better than that. So, excuse me. So, the song, if you can see that, I don't know if that will focus or not. If that won't focus and you can't see that, the song is called Portals. And wow, just let me tell you, when that starts playing, okay, if you haven't seen this movie, but you've already gotten this far, when this song starts playing, buckle up, okay? Just put on a seatbelt and just buckle up, because it's about to get epic in there, okay? As the song title says, portals just open everywhere, and it is so cool, okay? I mean, everyone has come back. All the heroes and everyone that got dusted, all back. And it is so cool to see this, okay? I gotta take a breath. And there are just armies, because at this point, Thanos has just called forth his entire army. I'm talking Chitauri, Sakarans. It's so much, so big, so cool. And so they're all behind him, and literally all that's standing is Cap. And this is going back to what I said a little bit ago, with you hear the fizzle after Cap tightens his shield, like he's getting ready to face all of this by himself. And then you hear that fizzle of the communicator, and then you hear Sam come over the radio, and then he says, "On your left," and then this portal just opens, and it's Okoye, Black Panther, and Shuri. And then Falcon just flies out. And then all of these portals just open from everywhere. And it's just like all the heroes and all the armies. And it is just such a cool scene. It is one of the best scenes in cinematic history for me. Okay? This movie is so cool. I can't stress that enough. So, towards the end of the final fight, there's a scene where Thanos gets his hands on the new gauntlet, the one that Tony and them made, and he snaps, but nothing happens because Tony got the stones. He got all 6 of them, and I mean, they are. He doesn't have this gauntlet either. Okay, he put them straight into his armor. So he snaps, and the entirety of Thanos' army dusts, including Thanos himself. And keep in mind, this is 2014 Thanos. 2018 Thanos is already dead. This is 2014 Thanos. But unfortunately, we now have to go forward in the Marvel Universe with movies. I'm not ready for it, but we have to push forward with no more Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark as Iron Man, because he does die. It's sad, yes. But what was even more sad for me was seeing Peter Parker, Spider-Man. There's so many Peters. Spider-Man's reaction to it. It's the classic I just got them back and now they're dead scenario. And Tony realizes what he has to do after. Okay. Thanos is a beast. He literally just took the Power Stone out of the gauntlet and just punched Captain Marvel with it. And she goes flying. And then, after that happens, Doctor Strange just gets this look on his face. It's like, oh no. But then he just does this to Tony, and it reminds me. It is a sad scene, but it kind of upsets me though because it reminds me of one from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. When he's going into Snape's memories, and he realizes that Dumbledore kept him alive just so he could die when it was necessary. When Dumbledore kept Harry alive, and it's like that in Endgame when Tony dies. It's like Doctor Strange kept him alive just so he could die at the proper moment. Because if you remember, Doctor Strange saw the outcomes 14,065 times, something like that. It was over 14 million. And they only won one. And this was the one. But this is what had to happen. Doctor Strange kept Tony alive at the proper moment. Or Doctor Strange kept Tony alive so he could die at the proper moment. And it just kind of... but still, nonetheless, it was a sad death scene. His funeral was very sad. Like, that was sad. But at the same time, I think it's fitting. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark as Iron Man is the one who started the whole Infinity Saga as Iron Man. So I think it's only fitting that he should die as Iron Man and end the Infinity Saga. So it's like closing a book. And also Happy is sitting with Tony's daughter after the funeral, and he kind of he says something where if you don't really remember the older movies, you might think it could just be a throwaway line. But Tony's daughter wants a cheeseburger, and Happy tells her that her dad loved cheeseburgers, which I thought was just a very tender moment because that's like the first thing he wanted to eat after he came out of the cave in the first Iron Man was a cheeseburger. So it wrapped everything up so nicely. I forgot to mention Stan Lee's cameo. There is a moment where they travel back to the 1970s to get the Tesseract again because they lost it in 2012. So they go back to the 70s to get the Tesseract. And you just see this car driving by, and it has a bumper sticker that says "Nuff said," which was like one of Stan Lee's catchphrases. And then it just pans into who's driving the car, and it's Stan Lee as a younger man, like what he would have looked like in the 70s. And it was just so cool. Like, I'm glad it wasn't anything like sappy or sad. It was just Stan Lee being Stan Lee. It was so good. And also in that same 1970s bit, we actually get to see the classic Ant-Man helmet, the OG Ant-Man helmet, like what it originally looked like in the costumes, and I just thought that was really cool. And the end credits were cool too. When they started putting the cast up, and they got to like the original 6, it had their signatures, which I thought was really cool. There is no, excuse me, there is no end credits scene, but there's an audio stinger. I didn't stay to hear it because they were trying to clean the theater and stuff, but I've heard it could be Tony making. Ew, I don't like why I said that. Tony making his armor in the first Iron Man movie from when he was in the cave, but I've heard that it could also be a teaser for Wolverine. I think it's more so the Iron Man one than Wolverine, but who knows? But yes, that was my review of Avengers Endgame. I give it A+, 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. Anything positive I can give this movie. And I just have to say that I agree with what I heard someone behind me in the theater say. They said, that was amazing. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. And I completely agree. It's the end of an era, but I'm excited to see what comes next. So I'll see you guys tomorrow because I plan to react to the most recent trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home. I couldn't do that, though, because it evidently had spoilers for Endgame for people who hadn't seen Endgame yet. But now that I've seen the movie, I can react to the newest trailer for Far From Home. So I plan to do that tomorrow. And possibly Wednesday, I'll have an update video for you guys. Just some cosmetic things I've done with the channel. Just changing it up a bit. And I'm excited for you to see it. So that's all I've got for you. So don't forget to stay nerdy. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, guys.